Thank you for watching this educational series, Tarot Card Meanings with Benebell. Don't forget, closed captioning is provided for every video in this course, so if that's something you're interested in, be sure to click and turn those on. We started this course with the Aces in the Sefer Keter on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Keter is the Tao, the name that cannot be named, the nameless origin of heaven and earth, the infinite and the dynamic. Then we moved into Chokmah, the supernal father, the divine yang, the seed and potential or divine intelligence, where we studied the realm of twos in the minor arcana. From there, we passed into Bina, the supernal mother, the divine yin, birth and formation, the receiving power of perception and observation. Here in Bina, we studied the threes. We then moved back to Chokmah because that's where the kings reside, the supernal father. And then it was back to Bina, the supernal mother, for the king's consorts, the queens. We are now moving from the supernal triangle, which is where we've been dwelling for the last 5 videos, into the lower Sephiroth, getting closer to Malkuth, though we are not quite there yet. To give us a bit of a break from the intense tarot quartz, we're going to study the fours, residents in the Sephira Hexed. Crowley tells us that the connection between the fours and the threes is, quote, extremely complex, end quote. For starters, the threes are above the abyss, while the fours are below the abyss. The abyss is that no man's land below the supernal triangle. All of us are below the abyss, and so long as you remain attached to your own ego, you cannot ascend beyond the abyss. Crowley tells us that the Sephira Hexed is the residence of the demiurge. We'll get to how I worked that into the Spirit Keeper's Tarot later in this lecture. The Sephira Hexed, which might also be named Gedula, is associated with the biblical Abraham. Hexed is a masculine noun for loving kindness. Gedula is a feminine term for greatness. Think of this metaphorically as your right arm. This is also submission to and execution of your greater purpose. Remember that the realm of fours is the first sign of divinity's presence below the abyss, initiating the architecture of the divine plan into material reality. When the fours come up in tarot divination, applying these Kabbalistic principles, we're looking at revelations about your higher purpose, what it means to live a good life. The threes above the abyss is first gained consciousness or awareness of divinity, the divine from which you were born of. Before we can cross that abyss into the threes, however, are the fours, to be at work, diligently, inspired by love of the divine, to fulfill your higher purpose. Now let's talk about the fours. This is divinity present below the abyss, having that divine influence over enterprise and the physical structures and domains you build. That's the core theme in the Four of Wands. This is divinity below the abyss, present in our emotional realm, when we are feeling the presence of the divine and trying to make sense of it in the limited materialist capacity we can. What happens to divinity when it gets filtered or interpreted through our emotions, our feelings? That's what we explore in the Four of Cups. And what about divinity below the abyss in our mental plane, among our intellections and thoughts, when divinity comes through logos? As much as witnessing the divine is cathartic, it is also an enormous burden on the human mind. There are consequences to realization of divinity within the limited space of thought. So we will see how that theme is expressed by the art and messaging of different interpretations for the Four of Swords. Finally, we've got divinity below the abyss in the material, earthly world that we dwell on, our limited and unlimited resources, our work product begotten from divine inspiration. This is the underlying theme for the Four of Pentacles or discs. The fours are about trying to figure out how to sustain, maintain, and give security to the fruition achieved from the threes. Let's talk about the Four of Batons, Four of Wands, Lord of Completion, or as I called it in my deck, the Four of Scepters. Take a moment here to study the imagery, compare and contrast. Now let's get some context to understand how the indications of the Four of Wands have evolved historically. We are learning the card meanings from Atea, Pappus, and Mathers. In the Tarot de Marseilles, the Four of Batons is symbolic of society or social associations. It's people connections, those you consider kindred. So the themes here are union, concord, and harmony. It's people joined together under a common purpose. You know, in modern day terms, I see this card as having some bearing on identity politics. This is also a card of peace, mutual fitness, or a treaty. There's agreement between and among the parties. Reversed, the card still holds similar meanings, and can you see why? The reversed Four of Wands looks confusingly similar to the upright Four of Batons. So here we see prosperity and success. So upright or reversed, a core theme here is that of being successful, of flourishing conditions. See the blooming flowers and just think flourish, thriving. The Four of Batons in the Marseille tradition is about good fortune, especially in employment, career, professional, or business matters. This is the card of having found happiness. It's about having an advantage over others, being in a state of circumstance of access to incredible opportunities. This is a position of ascent and superiority. You might recall the Two of Batons sharing a similar or closely connected meaning to the Four of Wands, specifically that of good fortune. One symbolic hint to that in your readings is the blossoming flower that both the 2 and 4 share. The Three of Batons is the one that's slightly different from the others. This card was about trade, negotiation, and commerce. It's about starting or undertaking an enterprise, and while generally positive, doesn't quite have the unequivocally positive good fortune indications of the 2 or the 4. In the Rider-Waite-Smith Four of Wands, we see two female figures holding up nosegays. You can even make out their facial features. Yeah, they're both facing forward at the onlooker. Nosegays are small flower bouquets, usually given as gifts, bearing messages of happiness or blessings. Waite also wants us to pay attention to the bridge over a moat in the background. What's the esoteric meaning there? Once you have achieved physical well-being and harmony, you are ready to cross that bridge and achieve spiritual well-being and harmony. No, I didn't just make that up. The Four of Wands is getting all your physical, worldly business matters in order so that you can focus on your spiritual, divinely inspired creative matters. Anyway, the Four of Wands is about having a haven or refuge. It's about physical stability in your life. So this is a happy card, and I wouldn't say it's all too different from the Marseille Four of Wands. This is the card or omen of receiving an abundant harvest. It's a sign of prosperity. Reversed, yes, even though the images are now upside down, Waite tells us there is no change in the card meaning, essentially because even reversed, this Four of Wands still means happiness, increase, felicity, beauty, and all good tidings. I might add in the caveat that it seems like there may be a slight delay before that harvest and prosperity comes in, but it shall come nevertheless. For me, the way I remember that, the reversed RWS Four of Wands is still good tidings, is how the verdant garland of flora is still front and center of your attention, and the pointed tip of the manorial tower looks like an arrow pointing at the lush flowers, reminiscent of the landscape behind the three women in the Three of Cups. Meanwhile, the Four of Wands in the Thoth deck is called completion. The Four of Wands is described as the manifestation promised by Bina, meaning after you've received a comprehensive understanding of spirit, you proceed with the work below the abyss in Hexad and get completion, the Four of Wands. Notice the 8-spoke wheel here formed by the 4 scepters. 4 of them depict doves for Venus because the deacon ruler corresponding with this card is Venus, and 4 of the scepters depict rams for Aries. That's Venus in Aries. The center 8-spoke flame represents that this completed work is aligned with divine will. You see a mimicking of the 8-spoke flame at the center of the completed red wheel. It was modeled after the sacred flame, a flame with 8 fundamental rays. In other words, completion is aligned with the divine will. There is a sense of limitation here, however, meaning there are literally physical constraints on the manifestation of divinity here in the Four of Wands, in this completion of your work. The Four of Wands lets you know that the work is completed, is only a partial representation of divine will, though it is that will nonetheless. The scepters with ram's heads are the scepters of the divine architect. When we get to key 4 in the major arcana, the emperor, we're going to see the sacred ram's head scepter again. The emperor, key 4, being elementally fire and associated with the zodiac sign Aries, is represented here in the 4 of Wands, a fire suit, Venus in the zodiac sign Aries. What about the card in reverse? Hold that thought. We'll circle back to the reversed 4s in the thought at the end. In my deck, the Spirit Keeper's Tarot, the 4 of Scepters is enlivened with a spirit called the Demiurge. Here, I think you'll see that I took symbolism from the Thoth deck and made that the prominent feature here. I've reinterpreted the castle and the 2 women with flower bouquets from the Rider-Waite-Smith. I'm not going to have a whole lot to say here because you'll read this card the same way you read either Waite's deck or Crowley's. The wheel you see, the seal of the Demiurge, tells you that the divine Ogdoad, or 8 primordial spirits of creation, is present. And if you're familiar with Egyptian mythology, the Ogdoad is made up of 4 gods and their 4 consorts. What I tried to draw here are garlands of raspberries in reference to the Empress card. You'll see the raspberries at the bottom foreground of the Empress card in my deck. This is to call to mind the resonance of Venus present in both of these cards. Reversed, I read this card as more of a forecast of things that have yet to even present itself as a possibility to you yet. So it's the same meaning as the 4 of Scepters, except delayed. The energy of the 4 of Wands is weakened, perhaps because there is an oppositional or contentious force in your environment, weakening it. And remember, you don't have to read with reversals when using the SKT. Most of the time, I don't. We're now on to the 4 of Cups. Take a moment here to study the imagery and compare the deck systems. In the Tarot de Marseilles, the 4 of Cups will suggest feelings of ennui, feeling wary of the world, discontent with your circumstances, maybe lacking interest in the world around you, and feeling a sense of boredom. This is emotional apathy, a lack of excitement or passion for what's going on. The themes here are dissatisfaction and disquiet, maybe feeling anxious or uneasy about what's happening or what's to come. When I see these 4 cups and how they might be filled, not really abundance, but also no longer scarcity, I think, so what? And that's kind of the messaging of this card. So what? Atea says that this card is the card of displeasure, and neighboring cards in a reading will reveal what is causing the displeasure or discontent. In previous videos, we talked about how the 2 of Cups is about love and mutually reciprocated affections, whether that's in the form of best friends or lovers or both. The 3 of Cups shows one chalice rising above and prevailing, as if being celebrated above the other 2. Reflecting that imagery, this is the card of triumph and victory, prognosticating a favorable outcome. Reversed, the 4 of Cups shows a red bud near the top of the card, so that's my cue for what this card means in reverse, which Mathers and Atea tell us could predict the meeting or encounter with a new acquaintance. Reversed, noting how whatever would have been contained in the cups are now spilling out. The reversed 4 of Cups forecasts that a storm is coming. More specifically, right now you are in the calm before the storm. A reversed 4 of Cups is foreboding that something bad is about to happen. This is generally considered a bad omen. In the RWS Suit of Cups, it went from party time to nap time. Am I right? Okay, so what does Waite himself have to say about his 4 of Cups? This is a young man seated under a tree, contemplating the 3 cups set out before him, and despite the offering of a 4th cup from that hand emerging out of a cloud, which Waite tells us is a fairy gift and full of wine, this man's face is one set in discontent. He's not happy about where he is. He's not happy with what's going on. The 4 of Cups here is about being world-weary, but Waite also notes that this is to be imagining your own problems and being upset about imagined problems. You're upset about issues that don't actually exist. Reversed, the Four of Cups foretells that something new is about to happen in your life. Waite tells us. You're about to receive new instruction from the divine to go in a different direction from what you've been doing. The reversed Four of Cups could also indicate a new relationship. In a love or romance reading and you've been single for a while, getting a reversed Four of Cups is good news, I would think. The Four of Cups in the Thoth is called Luxury. The Golden Dawn title for this key and the spirit resident here, which Crowley notes as well, is the Lord of Blended Pleasure. In the 14th century, luxury meant sexual intercourse. It referred to self-indulgence, debauchery, and sensual pleasure. I'm going to speculate here, but I would guess that Crowley didn't go with this keyword luxury for no reason. And, given his predilections, I think this was intentional. Anyway, that very negative connotation eased up by the 17th century England, however, and by then, luxury meant indulgence in what was costly to enjoy comforts beyond life's necessities. The root here is Latin luxuria for access and extravagance. However, within this word luxuria, there is lux, which means light, and I'm mentioning all this because it helps to inform our reading of Crowley's Four of Cups and just how much depth of thought has been devoted to the imagery here. What we see pouring forth from the lotus at the crown of this image, is that water or is that light? It's not so clear, and that's intentional. Crowley makes note of the elemental fire nature of the four, but how it is weakened in clash with the elemental water nature of the suit of cups. The clash of fire and water here therefore causes this particular spirit or energy to be alchemically unstable. We also want to examine how this light or streams pours forth from the crown, spilling out of the first chalice and down into the second, but fills the lower second quite perfectly. There's significance there, a sense of taking in but not releasing, not returning back out. There's also the endless knot, like the roots of a tree, to consider. Crowley tells us that this card expresses a certain loss of innocence. Before we move on, there's something you might have observed about the arrangement of the four cups and the lotus at the top. Here's a blueprint for the Gra tree of life. If I may, take a look at the 5 nodes near the top of the tree. Take a note of that formation. Does it maybe kind of remind you of the arrangement of the 4 cups and lotus with Keter, the crown node, spilling forth to a binary twin streams of its divine waters into the 4 chalices? And what about where the 2 streams touch? The only point in this imagery where the binary of divine waters touch each other. Is it revealing that 11th Sephirah, that? The lotus in the position of the crown node, the Sephirah Keter, is the Tao, which spills forth the binary yin and yang, active and passive, assertive and receptive, creation and destruction, the divine streams of life flowing forth from the one. The, please forgive my pronunciation here and everywhere, Yechida, or state of unity, the Kabbalistic principle of a soul being one with God. That's why, at least in the Golden Dawn or Thelemic interpretation of the Four of Cups, we get the Lord of Blended Pleasure. Putting all that obscure Crowleyan fodder all together, what do you get? Good question, huh? Well, I for one read it as the overindulgence in sensual pleasures to dilute the emotions from sensing the true emptiness and void of existence. When this card shows up, it's an omen that the querent is now ready to receive instruction from divinity that will take the querent on a new life direction. Harkening back to the earlier versions of the Four of Cups we've covered, we see similar themes here as well. How did we even get to this point of overindulgence in these sensual pleasures to dilute our emotions? Well, discontent for the status quo. The querent is seeking more out of life. There must be more than this provincial life, as it were. And in this desperate seeking, you're looking for satisfaction in all the wrong, superficial places. The Hollow Void, or the Four of Chalices from SKT, should be a rather self-explanatory card to read for anyone familiar with the Rider-Waite-Smith. I did change the 3 chalices standing on the ground in front of the meditating figure that you saw in the RWS to 3 chalices hovering above, and if you study the image closely, they're now behind the meditating figure. Let's take a closer look here, shall we? The tree this individual, gender ambiguous, because in Buddhist tradition, both monks and nuns shave their heads. That tree is a camphor tree that has become a snag. A snag is a dead or dying tree that's still standing. Camphor trees are sacred in Japanese Shinto and Buddhism. Camphors are evergreens, and yet here the evergreen has died and become a snag. Now, if I may direct your attention to the 2 arms above the head in hand mudra, which represent inner alchemy to connect up to the divine, seeking to become one with divinity. The 2 arms reaching outward with lotus fingers represent outer alchemy, symbolic of seeking balance and harmony with the world around you. That is both a physical world and an emotional world. Check out the little scorpion I drew in the tree. You would have seen the scorpion in key 13, the Tarot Death card, which I renamed to the Reaper. This is the presence of Serket, goddess of magic and healing, in another manifestation at another time and place for one who needs to see her. This is also the Mesopotamian goddess Ishara, later syncretized with Ishtar, and in yet another manifestation, another time and place for one who needs to see her. This is Malina Swashi, the Mesoamerican sorceress goddess, present through snakes and scorpions. Why? Why for the Four of Cups? Oh, where do I even begin? It is from the hollow void that creation and transformation take place. You have to be in that Four of Cups state before magic, healing, even love and power can be had. That is why these divine emanations appear to you for now as only the discreet, easy to miss scorpion in the tree above your head, just out of your line of sight. From your perspective, meditating there under the camphor tree in deep thought, you cannot see the divinity close by. It is only from my vantage point, that of the onlooker, from a different perspective, that what is truly around you can be witnessed. Now, what about that cloud in the sky? Funny you should ask, my friend. I kind of ripped this idea from the Lenormand clouds card. When the hollow void or Four of Cups shows up, look to the direction that cloud is moving in. If there is a card there, read that card in connection with the Four of Chalices, or look up. I mean, like literally physically look up from the position you've placed this tarot card and see what's in your actual surroundings in the direction of the cloud. Spirit has placed a sign or omen there for you to see. Reversed, note the changed positioning and directionality of that cloud. Same as before, what's now to the left, spatially in the card spread, or a sign and omen placed for you to see to your left right now will lend insight into your Four of Cups situation. Onward to the Four of Swords. What similarities and what differences do you see across these 4 versions of the card? The Marseille Four of Swords depicts the 4 curved scimitar daggers interlocking with 4 flower buds along the 4 corners. This arrangement started in the Two of Swords, which shares a similar floral arrangement at the center focal point of the card, though different in design. It continues into the Three of Swords, though there we had rupture, where the tip of the 3rd sword, which is straight, is piercing through the curved scimitar daggers. The Four of Swords here is about choosing solitude. We see a flower that has enclosed itself inside the swords. Thus, I see that imagery and remember seclusion, being removed from social interaction, community, or isolating oneself to be kept apart from others. Similar themes around solitude, we might see a retreat or even abandonment issues. Reversed, the card is advised to be more economical, more frugal, to scale down. This is about having to tighten that belt buckle of yours and to preserve personal energy, preserve personal resources. Atea notes that the Four of Swords message can relate to either health or money issues. Neighboring cards in a tarot spread will let you know whether the Four of Swords in a reading is indicating a health issue or a money issue. Reversed, the Marseille Four of Swords is telling you waste not, want not, and maybe also be discreet. Exercise greater discretion. Proceed with caution. In the RWS Four of Swords, we see an effigy or a stone statue of a knight in prayer atop a tombstone. You can't help but to notice the yellow hues of the effigy and the general focal point of the card's imagery. Waite calls this the omen of the tomb and coffin. So if anything, rather than the death card in the major arcana, and we will eventually get to what that card indicates, the Four of Swords is more of an omen of death or the allegory of death than Key 13, the infamous death card of the tarot. However, we don't see a whole lot of black here, nor do we see purple or gray, the Victorian colors associated with funerals and therefore death. So what the yellow tells me is we can still prevent this. There is time. Whatever is going on can be prevented, can be treated, can be healed, rectified, changed for the better. This card can mean you need some rest and repose for full recovery of an illness. It can also mean you feel marginalized, cast out, or pushed out of the inner circle. You're forced to retreat. Reversed, the Four of Swords is an omen to be cautious, yet Waite also calls this card wise administration, or having to be cautious in the management and execution of official duties, duties of an office or official position that you hold, wise administration. And then this card can also mean avarice. Avarice is to be greedy, to hoard. And so we do see a little bit of this card, the Four of Pentacles, in the Four of Swords reversed. I mean, I did at least. In the Thoth, the Four of Swords is the Lord of Rest from Strife. The keyword Crowley uses on his card is truce. Both phrasing suggests that there had been, past tense, had been hostilities and conflict, but now, present tense, there is a ceasefire, a temporary respite from trouble or pain. Crowley assures us that the art here tells you everything you need to know. So, what do you see? Well, the setting, the backdrop and environment looks quite threatening, hostile, and scary. Lots of dangers for sure, but at the center, marked by the green X, we seem to be pretty safe. What intrigues me, though, is that the Four Swords aren't pointed outward at the external storm. They're pointed inward toward the center of that flower. It's threats from within, internal turmoil. Crowley tells us that this is the strong man armed, keeping his house in peace. The Four of Cups was a fire-water opposition, the number 4 for fire, at least according to Crowley, and the suit of cups for water. The Four of Cups is destabilizing and unstable. Meanwhile, the Four of Swords, the number 4 for fire, and the suit of swords for air is dignified, where fire and air amplify each other, strengthen, and therefore this card is the polar opposite of the Four of Cups. Here, the Four of Swords is stabilizing, stable, while strife and trouble are being kept at bay. Let's take a closer look at the center symbolism here. Crowley tells us that this is a picture of the formation of the military clan system of society. Speaking of clan, tell me that what I'm highlighting on screen does not look like a 4-pointed ninja throwing star to you. There are 2 of them of prominence, one with the glyph for Jupiter and the other with the glyph for Libra. Jupiter and Libra, the card's deacon ruler correspondences. Generally here, I see this as a symbol of turmoil, conflict, and the threat of attack at any given moment. Now, I kind of want to count the petals of the center, what looks to me like a Japanese chrysanthemum. The innermost ring of petals, to the best I could count it, has 6 petals. Then the next second ring out has 9 petals. Continuing out, the third ring has 16 petals, and the outermost ring has 24 petals. Any significance to that? I don't know. Do you find any significance to it? The Four of Swords in the Spirit Keeper's Tarot is the convalescent. It's a pretty recognizable Four of Swords card from the RWS, and the tombstone itself pays homage to the Thoth Four of Swords. The resident spirit here is the convalescent, because this is someone in recovery mode, someone trying to recover or recoup a loss, making progress after getting knocked down. It's having gotten knocked around mentally, often trying to find wellness after having been downcast, dragged down, or having been pulled deep into a state of horrible gloom and depression, and now you're trying to climb your way back up and out. In the window iconic from the Rider-Waite-Smith Four of Swords, here in the SKT, we see the healing angel, the divine higher genius from the major arcana. For those reading with reversals, the programming for the deck changes just a little, and when reversals are observed, look around the environment of the card for context clues. That's important. A generally positive, optimistic surrounding or spread means the state of convalescing is over. Recovery is just around the bend. Cards or a surrounding context that suggests obscurity is a call to action. You are not doing everything you can in your power to get yourself out of the state of affliction that you're currently in. Also, only if it makes sense to you. When the Four of Swords comes up or is following you around, it may actually be the angel, your own higher genius, trying to get through to you, but is blocked from doing so because you're mentally blocked from receiving. That's why the Four of Swords is showing up instead of the angel. The angel is trying to get to you, but you're the one saying no, nope, or maybe your subconscious is. So you have to deal with the Four of Swords situation first, even if you don't realize consciously that you're in a Four of Swords situation, before the angel can fully manifest in omnipotent divine glory. Finally, the Four of Coins in the Marseilles, Four of Pentacles in the RWS, Four of Discs in the Thoth, Lord of Power, and as I called it, the Four of Orbs, the Spirit of the Conservator. Take a moment here to study the four versions of this card. The Four of Coins is the enjoyment of the finer things in life. This card means satisfaction, to be satisfied and feel satiated. For those familiar with the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot and the card meanings I'm giving you right now are news to you, roll with it for now, okay? So anyway, this is quite a happy card per my interpretation of the early texts giving us card meanings for the Marseilles. This is the card of the epicure. An epicure, noun, is a person who cultivates a refined taste, a connoisseur for the finer things in life. In archaic use, it indicates someone who really loves the sensual, tactile enjoyment of life. This is the card of merrymaking and festivities. It is basically the opposite in meaning to the Two of Coins, which, if you recall from our video lecture on the twos, this is the card of financial insecurity. Again, not quite the same as what RWS readers might be used to for the Two of Pentacles. The Two of Coins in the Marseilles is a card of scarcity, worry, and resource difficulties. In the Three of Coins, because the imagery here is of that third coin rising from the union of the two below it, and there's both symmetry and harmonious balance in the designed aesthetics, the Three of Coins was about elevation, rising in rank, rising to power. Makes sense now that I direct your attention to the imagery, right? Okay, reversed, the Four of Coins is visually distinct, inverted than how it looked upright, which isn't always the case in the Marseilles, as you've seen so far. Reversed, this card is about obstacles to the enjoyment of life and its finer, more Epicurean offerings. Here we see something hindering joy, blocking merrymaking, blocking festivities. The Four of Pentacles in the classic RWS pictures a crowned figure with a lot of valuable possessions. Weight makes reference to surety, which means this is someone holding security or collateral that others have paid him. In other words, he's kind of a loan shark. Waite also instructs that the divinatory meaning for the Four of Pentacles is material attachment, holding on to what you have, perhaps having a scarcity mindset. However, this card can also prognosticate an inheritance or gift to come. Reversed, the Four of Pentacles might suggest delays in the bequeath of that inheritance or gift. Reversed, the Four of Pentacles can also suggest losing security, losing what you most prized. Let's talk about the Four of Discs in Crowley's Thoth deck, the Lord of Earthly Power. In modern times, lots of folks have pointed out that the imagery here looks a lot like a computer circuit board with 4 little computer chips, doesn't it? I swear, the first time I saw that, I thought those were computer chips or a computer circuit board, and then thought, wait a minute, that's not possible. Well, Crowley tells us it's an enclosed fort or wall with 4 turrets, 4 towers along the 4 edges. You can see the front entrance along the bottom edge of the card. The Four of Discs is a dominating, domineering, and stabilizing power. But let's get specific. It's power acquired by negotiation and peaceful methods. Crowley also tells us this is the rule of law and the stabilizing forces of governance. There's no aggression here, no fight, just power residing within peaceful methods. You know, I would say that's quite a different meaning for the card than the Four of Pentacles in the Rider-Waite-Smith, which took on a pretty different approach for card meaning from the Four of Coins in the Marseilles. So, you know, good luck making any sense of all this. So how exactly does that compare to modern interpretations for this card? Well, let's find out. In Mary Kay Greer's Tarot for Yourself, she offers the meaning of this card as self-centeredness or selfishness, possessiveness, but it's also just being very self-aware of your own worth and value. It's control and protection over resources. There's also a sense of greediness and hoarding here. Rachel Pollack's 78 Degrees of Wisdom notes that this is the image of a miser. This is dependence on material comforts and closing oneself off from the rest of the world. You're using those 4 pentacles as protection. Philosophically, the Four of Pentacles is also about humanity trying desperately to give structure to the chaos of existential being. So that's kind of close to what Waite said, sorta. Now the reversals issue. How do we read reversed 4s in the Thoth deck? Well, Crowley doesn't give us explicit instruction here, but based on the context of the Book of Thoth and his other writings, there may be a few things we can infer. For the Four of Wands reversed, I read that as being 1 step short of completion. In the Four of Cups reversed, that's having found meaning, no longer needing to dilute your emotions with external distractions and sensual pleasures, but now you're making some major lifestyle changes and taking a more spiritual approach to life, being more in alignment with spirit, with divinity. Hence, the 2 streams flow back into the single source, the lotus blossom, which, if you take a closer look, is now upright. Will you look at that? For the Four of Swords reversed, because there is minimal change to the imagery here between upright and reversed, I don't read too much difference between this card which way it comes up. The Four of Discs reversed now has the front entrance and bridge at the top upside down. So if upright, this was about a stabilizing power or rule of law, reversed, I see the overthrow of that power, the overthrow of a force that had been dominant, which will now be replaced with a new epoch, a new era of governance that will eventually rise to equal stability and power. These, however, strictly represent my own way of interpreting the Thoth 4 reversals. And finally, the SKT 4 of Orbs, the spirit of the conservator. I hope you see both the Thoth 4 of Discs here and the Rider-Waite 4 of Pentacles. Yeah, of course you do. Anyway, since everybody else went in their own direction for this card, I was like, I give myself permission to go in my own direction. Screw precedent. Look, you can read this Four of Orbs the way you read this card in any other system. So please, please, you do you. Don't listen to me. The only thing I'm doing here is sharing my deck creator intentions. Deck creator intentions only matter if it matters to you. Get it? First, the Conservator. What did I mean by that title for this spirit? The service and role of the Conservator will reveal the card's meaning. This is someone who conserves, who preserves matter from decay or loss. It's someone who protects. This is a protector, someone who defends and guards something of material value. We also get that from the earthy energy of the orbs and the astrological indications for the sun in Capricorn. This is someone who repairs and restores decaying conditions. Like an art conservator, you try to prevent things from entering that state of decay. The orb above the head symbolizes higher purpose, where your greater purpose served is to be a conservator of sorts, one of these service roles. And finally, a conservator is a custodian, a guardian over someone or something else. The two orbs at the feet represent someone walking this path of the conservator. Reversed, I guess the question needs to be asked. Why are you holding back from accepting the role of conservator? Or if you want to, go there with me in terms of personal gnosis, why are you not letting in the spirit of the conservator, who is here to try to protect you, safeguard you, and repair the material losses you've sustained? So you see, I did still stick close to the river of the textbook card meaning for the Four of Pentacles. When the conservator shows up, you need a spirit guardian to help you conserve, help you preserve, and help you prevent decay or further loss. So let in this spirit so you can build the foundation you need for more abundance and financial prosperity to come through. Let's look at the conservator side by side with the Thoth Four of Discs. Remember those four turrets or four towers of the enclosed fort, which I turned into four building blocks. You've got glyphs for the four elements inscribed here. Circled in red is fire. Circled in blue now on screen is water. There is a connection here to the Magician card, reinforcing the esoteric principle that the four is the one, a principle covered in Tarot of the Bohemians by Pappas. A link to a video guide of that book will be provided. So we have fire, water, and now air. Crowley's Four of Discs is about power, the power of the magus. And so this is the harnessing of the four elements for esoteric technology to produce extraordinary structure. The final block there, circled in green, is earth. There is a generally masculine and paternalistic energy to the fours in the minor arcana of tarot. These are the keys that building and material formation of work product is taking place. Crowley calls it the rule of law. We're going to see dynamics of order and power here. Now, consider what reversals of the cards here would convey to you. Reversals change the direction of a flow. How do those changes in the direction of a flow impact how you read the energy here? Pause the video here if you need more time for study and only resume when ready. So where are we headed to next? Well, this video was about the fours in the Sephra Hexed, the rule of law, order, and seeking security. We are now moving laterally to the Givera, Sephra of the realm of fives, a realm of storm and stress. Here we are going to confront the stabilizing forces and really test our inner drive. These are the trials for us to find out what we're really made of.